Hello everyone, hope you're all well. It's been quite a while again, and a lot has been happening on several different levels, particularly since July's buck moon, full moon. That was just incredibly transformative on a spiritual level and on other levels as well. In terms of politics, that was the day that Joe Biden stepped aside as the gracious elder statesman he is to make way for Kamala Harris. And things have been moving quite rapidly ever since then. I would like to do a separate video just for the spiritual impact of July's buck moon and other events since then. This video is more directed toward politics. And the title I have today is Free Speech is Not Free of Natural Consequence. And another way to put it would be, I am a huge Stephen King fan. I have all of his books, and the only one I haven't read is Misery, because I, as a teenager, made the huge mistake of watching the movie first, and Kathy Bates absolutely terrified me with her brilliant portrayal of the main character. So I have not been able to read Misery. Anyway, Stephen King has certain phrases or sayings that he includes in several of his books. One of them is, "Take what you want and pay for it, says God." And that is essentially the same idea as freedom isn't free of natural consequence. Yes, you are absolutely free to make your choice as far as what you're going to say, what you're going to do. You have the freedom to make that choice, but you are not free of the consequences of your choice. It's a natural law. It applies to everyone. And Donald Trump has admittedly had a lot of reason to think that maybe that doesn't apply to him. All of his life, he's gotten away with everything. A criminal lifestyle, it's just been outrageous. And it seems things are finally catching up with him. And we can certainly hope for his sake as well as the rest of the world's. Things are at a critical juncture. And first and foremost, I would like to reiterate what I have said before. Violence, political violence in particular, is absolutely unacceptable. The 2 assassination attempts against Donald Trump, unacceptable, wrong. And they absolutely should be investigated and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I am joining Kamala Harris and everyone, basically, in condemning the assassination attempts against Donald Trump. Because this world system is built on oppressive power that uses violence to impose the will of the powerful few upon the entire rest of the world, both human populations and non-human populations. The innocent have paid the price far too often in this system, which is why it is utterly corrupt. And we must, if the human race is to survive as a species, we must make such dramatic changes that we build an entirely new system. We cannot use the old foundation. We have to start completely from scratch. I recently read a book by Amanda Scott, who I highly recommend. She has a website, a podcast called Accidental Gods. Her new book is called Any Human Power. It is life-changing, and it presents the idea of a throughtopia. And obviously it's taken from the word utopia. We all want to create an ideal society. And often those of us who envision that are mocked for the unrealistic expectation of a better world, but it is possible. if we commit to it and if we are willing to do the hard work of creating a new system not based on the old whatsoever. So the Throughtopia is not something ethereal. It's not something, that is on some other planet. We're not waiting for somebody, a messiah, to come back and make the world new. No, this starts where we are right here and now. We must start building a new system with new materials, not using the old, learning from the mistakes so we do not repeat them. The new system can't be built of the same materials, or it's doomed to the same outcome, the same evils. In order to create a new and a better world that serves all of life, not just humans, and not just particularly a few pale humans with ridiculous amounts of hoarded wealth. In order to build that system for the benefit of all living creatures, we have to utterly reject the old paradigms. That includes political violence. It is unacceptable for any reason. None of that, however, means tolerating the lies and the violence and the evil from Donald Trump and MAGA and all of the others who perpetuate it. In fact, we must stand immovable against it, recognizing that there are those like MAGA who will defend the old system, the corrupt world, because it serves them. They don't want a new world. They don't want a Throughtopia for everyone. They want their power consolidated and secure against the rest of us. There are two factions here, and we cannot lose sight of that. We cannot use their weapons or their tools, and that includes political violence and oppression. We will not touch those. They don't belong in our new and better world. So we confront the old paradigms with truth and justice. Justice that comes from love, not from revenge or retribution or hatred or a sense of grievance. And I struggle with that. I do feel hatred for Donald Trump and JD Vance and many of them. I struggle with that. But hatred is a passion that's very close to love. I hate because I am so disappointed. And they had tremendous potential to do tremendous good with the power that they have consolidated. And they continue to fail themselves as well as everyone else. So justice must come from a place of love, where you say, I wanted better for you. I hate what you have become, and I know that you could be better. And that's where I'm coming from with this. I hate what they've become, because they should be much better people than they are. They could be, if they had made different choices. I have been a bad person in the past. I made horrible choices that damaged other people as well as myself. And I deeply regret it. But I am very grateful that I got karma. I got justice. And I have paid for the wrong choices that I made. And I'm a much better and stronger person for it. And I want that for everyone else. I am grateful now for all the suffering that I deserved because of my bad choices. That is all I am saying here. I am not advocating for any viciousness of any kind, only justice. Justice that comes from love. Trump and Vance are both notorious for wrapping themselves up in this garment of free speech. The First Amendment right to free speech. Even though, Donald Trump has said that he should be able to, he wants to overthrow the Constitution, but still, takes refuge in the First Amendment of the Constitution, the right to free speech. And any pushback against the lies that come spewing out of their mouths, any pushback or fact-checking against those lies is falsely characterized as an attempt to rob them of their right to free speech. No. They're not getting it. You are free to say whatever dumbass lie enters the cave between your waxy ears. But guess who else has the right of free speech? Everybody else. Every single citizen of the United States of America has the right to free speech. Same as you, at least in theory. The problem is for them that everyone has free speech, the right to it, not just the privileged few. You are free to join the Ku Klux Klan and march through Nashville streets. You are free to join the MAGA cult and say whatever vile shit you want, Laura Loomer. But the rest of us are not just free, but obligated to expose your lies for what they are. Your free speech does not free you from the natural consequences of what you say. Words have meaning. Your word must have value if you expect it to be heard and taken seriously. As a politician, that should go triple for you, although it hasn't. If your word can't be trusted, it is worthless. And everyone has the right to know that before they do business with you, before they interact with you on any level. Donald Trump told over 33,000 documented, debunked lies during his 4-year term disgracing the office of president. And that is just a fraction of his grand total. Your First Amendment right to free speech does not mean you get to lie your messy ass off with impunity. When a journalist exposes your lies in public, that does not mean the media is rigged against you. That simply means that journalist has had the actual balls to do their job. Fact-checking is a main part of what journalism is for. It's to keep liars accountable. Now, CNN hosted the infamous debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, which Joe Biden had a really bad night. We all know that. However, the moderators did not fact check even one of Donald Trump's myriad lies during that debate. They didn't even try. Even when Donald Trump said, again, that Democrats actually advocate murdering infants after birth. That is an outrageous slander. It's never been true. They didn't even check that. I'm still disgusted. The ABC moderators, on the other hand, they did their job a mere fraction of the time that they should have. Yeah, they did call out one or two or maybe three, at least two that I remember. At least twice, they fact-checked Donald Trump and his outrageous lies. But they could and should have done a lot more than that. They let Trump have the last word on every single question. Check it. Every single one. Kamala was the only one that they refused to give extra time to answer. Despite these handicaps heaped upon her unjustly, she absolutely crushed him in that debate, and everybody knows it, which is why MAGA has been losing their minds ever since. And yet, for even doing the very minimum of what their job calls for, the ABC moderators have been threatened and condemned and vilified by MAGA ever since. They've gotten threats of criminal prosecution if Trump should win the election, etc., etc. And now for almost a decade, since Trump descended that golden escalator in New York City in 2015, MAGA rhetoric has been stirring up violence by appealing to people's worst, most base instincts, by provoking them to fear what they're not familiar with, by lying to them over and over and over and over, doubling and tripling down in the face of all the facts and all the evidence, until the media is just too exhausted to continue fact-checking. That's how they've accomplished this vacuum where the media should be stepping in to present the truth and the facts. They've gotten exhausted. There's a term, the fire hose of lies, and it's effective. They've just given up. They're exhausted. We're all exhausted. Too many lies to even check. And that's how we get this ludicrous double standard where Trump says outrageous, vile lies. They're barely registered as news stories. While every single detail of every single word that Harris or Walz says is scrutinized for the slightest shade of gray. One of the first things Trump did while disgracing the office of the president was repeal the laws restricting mentally ill people from being able to buy assault weapons, which led once again to massacres nationwide. And then MAGA congresspeople respond to these mass shootings in elementary schools and high schools across the country. Their response is to wear little cute lapel pins in the shape of these assault weapons, AR-15s. They wear the pins in the halls of Congress to celebrate the mass shootings. And then they might offer, a stray thought and prayer, thoughts and prayers to the families of the victims. Oh, you'll never see your children again? You had to bury your child? You never came home from school? Oh, thoughts and prayers. All because they are for the proliferation of weapons of war in a nation that is supposedly at peace, but is not because of them. And that callous rhetoric never varied until Trump started getting shot at by his own former supporters with those same assault weapons. Suddenly now, Vance is blaming the Harris-Walz campaign for inciting this violence by our rhetoric, which is simply telling the truth and fact-checking the lies that Donald Trump spews continuously. By producing verifiable facts to contradict their baseless lies. They claim that has incited this violence. It's a lie, another lie, on top of countless before it. The GOP are the only ones, demonstrably, who have promulgated this culture of violence on the political stage. They are the ones who have been for violence and oppression. None of that has come from Kamala Harris or Tim Walz. Yet Trump blames everyone but himself, as usual, when his own evil backfires in his face. Somewhat literally this time. And you know what? I honestly don't have much sympathy for him. I'm glad he's okay. I really am. I'm glad he has another chance to mend his ways before the next life. But I'm not surprised that his violence has come home to roost. Karma is a bitch, but she's a fair bitch. You reap what you sow. Yesterday, J.D. Vance scolded the left, saying we must tone down our rhetoric before someone gets hurt, thereby dismissing the untold numbers who have been massacred by violence they continue to ignore, placing the blame squarely on the only people who have consistently condemned this kind of violence. Both assassins, would-be assassins of Donald Trump, were exposed to MAGA rhetoric and propaganda. Both of them voted for him, or the one was too young, I believe, to vote, but both of them were supportive of MAGA. They bought into it at some point. J.D. Vance admitted in an interview with Dana Bash the day before yesterday that he and Trump create stories in order to galvanize their base, in order to provoke the media to stop ignoring what they're wanting to talk about, which is a bunch of lies about the border, which we'll get into soon. He admitted that they lie. Leftist extremists do exist. I won't deny that. But they're not inflamed or supported by our leaders. Not to the extent that MAGA is. And they hold relatively little persuasive power. Trump deliberately blocked a bipartisan border bill that was designed by one of the most conservative politicians in Congress, Langford. He killed that bill simply because he wanted to run on the issue in order to avoid going to jail for the rest of his life. He is a malignant narcissist. He is the only thing that matters to him. And despite the fact that he did this in public, in full view for everyone to see, he blocked this bill. Everybody knew he was blocking it. The news leaked everywhere that he was telling them he was whipping their votes against it because he wanted to run on the issue. They threatened Langford that if he presented this bill, that they would do their best to destroy him. It's all there if you want to look it up. We have facts, we have evidence. They don't. They just have lies. This should not be a tight race, but it is. Because it's the old paradigm fighting for its life. The old system fighting to survive. While the new system is being built around it. And you know, despite this, the fact that he did this, obviously, everybody knows he blocked this bill, or they should know. Despite that, he and Vance continue to shriek like banshees about the caravans. By the way, Donald Trump, you did not make that word up. Caravans of brown and black immigrants being released from prisons and mental asylums all over the world in order to pour across our border by the millions, because Biden and Harris refused to do anything to prevent criminals from invading our country. None of that is real. None of that is true. We do have a border problem, yes, I have lived in border states, California and Texas, for the past decade and a half. And yeah, we do have a border crisis, absolutely. And it should have been addressed a long time ago. A long time ago. Trump promised he would address it, but he didn't. He built 53 miles of wall, tiny fraction of what was supposed to be there and paid for. He had 4 years. When Biden, very late, admittedly, but when Biden finally did try to address the border by granting everything that the right wanted and admitting, yeah, you guys were right, this is a big problem and we should have addressed it. We conceded to the conservatives on so many things, granted their wishes in this bill. It was the fearmonger-in-chief, Donald Trump, who stopped it. He let the border stay unprotected so he could capitalize on the fear that he creates in our citizens. He wants people scared. He wants people fearing for their lives and fighting for their survival when nobody's trying to threaten them. He wants to provoke that violence again. So he deliberately stokes fear in our citizens. He stokes the fears of his MAGA base constantly by threatening white people with rape and pillage by whoever it is that they decide this week to view as other than them. J.D. Vance freely admitted to creating stories, lying about a group of his own constituents in Springfield, Ohio. And we've all heard the dogs and cats being eaten bullshit now. When Dana Bash caught him on that, called him out, and good for her for doing that, he did the classic abuser gaslighting ploy to try to erase his mistake, and I guarantee you, women all across America and the world felt their skin crawl watching him do it. That tone that we all have heard. Dana. As if we're children. As if he's calling on some deep well of patience in the face of foolish questions or challenges. No, you don't get to take that tone. Disgusting. And these lies that he admits to, they're the same ones that Trump spewed in his verbal vomit at the debate. This bullshit that a group of Haitian immigrants is stealing, butchering, and eating people's pets, as well as the town's ducks and geese. This has been thoroughly debunked and disproven so many times, even by their fellow maggots like Governor DeWine of Ohio. He's a Trump supporter, but he has come out to defend his community because he sees the horrible impact it's having on his constituents, and he maybe actually gives a shit. Amazing. Understand that these Haitian immigrants are in Springfield legally, and more than legally, they're there by request of the Ohio government because there were companies that could not fill the jobs because American citizens wouldn't take them. They are grateful to have these Haitian immigrants there filling those jobs, strengthening their economy, their community. Their churches defend their character. Their neighbors stand up for them. Yet Trump and Vance continue to lie about them, even when the original lie was exposed. And because they continue to lie, there have been dozens of bomb threats from MAGA against that community's elementary schools and hospitals, municipal buildings, all the places most vulnerable to terrorism. It's the hospitals and the elementary schools that really get me. They are domestic terrorists. Trump and Vance are domestic terrorists, and they should be prosecuted as such for what they have done to Springfield, Ohio alone. Haitian parents, it's the third day or something now where they're keeping their kids home from school for fear of their safety. As if gun drills in schools were not enough. Now there are bomb threats too. Nice job, MAGA. Nice job, Trump. Nice job, Vance, for your constituents. Good going. So yeah, when one of these lunatics that they have driven mad with all of these threats of bloodshed and violence, when they point a gun, one of these lunatics points a gun that they got thanks to Trump, at Trump, I do not approve, and I do not celebrate that. It is wrong, it is tragic, it should never ever happen. And I am glad he's okay. However, you reap what you sow. Sow the wind, reap the whirlwind. That's Hosea. I still know my Bible. The gods spared you twice, Trump, letting you off with a warning to change your bloodthirsty ways. Yet you refuse to correct your evil. You're too disgustingly low to accept any responsibility in any degree for any evil you have ever done, and there's a lot of it. You just perpetuate the endless cowardly cycle of cringe and whine about how everything is rigged against you, when in fact it is rigged in your favor, which is why you are not in a jail cell right now like anybody else would be that has done half of what you've done. Trump has earned nothing but the pity and disgust of the nation he's trying to conquer. And he is trying to conquer it by force and by fear. So I end with the same prayer that I always pray sincerely for MAGA, for Donald Trump and JD Vance and all the rest. May you all receive precisely what you deserve in full measure, no more and no less. So be it.